Check, 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 check. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check. Okay, let me know if you can hear me again. Very cool. All right, cool. So we got quite a few people here. This is great. Hey, conservative, you're back. That's awesome. Ricky is here. Steve is here. Tom S. is here. Jared's here. David, Roy, Richard, Paul, Bob. Hey, Bob. Kurt, Jeff, Amanda, Sam, David, John, Ricky Lynx is back. Earl, Mario. Hey, everybody. Aaron, David. Great. All right, perfect. So, welcome to the Masterclass monthly live session. We're going to be talking about some different things here today. Wow, down under Australia. Hey, William, so glad you're here. Hey, Rich. Rich is back. That's awesome. Randolph, Angelo, cool. Awesome. So, we're going to try and get to some of your questions, see if I can answer your questions, keep you inspired to continue playing this crazy six-string madness, right? It never ends. The further you go down the rabbit hole, the crazier it seems to get. And I've been playing my whole life, and it's still just insane to me. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started here. So I've got some really good questions here. This is great. Let me find my sheet. There we go. Okay, so let's start with Randy here. Hey, Bob. Hey, Len. Hey, Victoria. Hey, Bill. Renzo. Let's see here. Randy says, discuss how to transition from a mode to a lick. Okay. Modes and licks, I don't transition from a mode to a lick. The mode is the scale that I'm using, right? It's the structure that I'm using. The licks would come out of that mode, but I'm telling you, the way this works for me is I don't really sit and think about licks per se. For me, it's more movements, right? Now, I'm not saying I don't play licks. Of course I play licks, but I don't really think of it as like just having an arsenal of a bunch of different licks. I try and think about my motions. And if that's considered a lick, like I think of licks as like, you know, that kind of thing. And I use those, there's no doubt about it. But I tend to work on pathways. So if I'm in a particular mode, you know, my whole fretboard gets set up in that mode. Okay? Let's see what we got here. Ray's is here. Mr. Lehman, hello. All right, perfect. So we're doing okay. So when I'm playing, I tend to set myself, like, let's say I'm going to be an A Dorian, right? So the big thing is I want to focus on that major sixth. That sound. Right? Now, as I'm moving around, I might transition into a lick of some sort, but you know, maybe something like that. Maybe I'd move into a. But those are just movements. You know, I would use them in different positions as well, not just one position, but they're just little ideas that I kind of, can you guys see me okay? Steve says Ron says he can't hear or see anything. So it looks like you guys are all good. Good morning from the Philippines. Hey, Thomas, glad you're here. So anyway, as I'm playing, I don't really think about licks per se until I get somewhere. And then I tend to transition back out of it, but the mode encompasses my entire fretboard. So if that kind of makes sense to you. Okay, let's see here. Medicine Man says, how can I get scales and modes PDF of the whole fretboard? Well, different courses would have those. You could certainly just do a search on the internet, I'm sure, and find, you know, type in like G major or A Dorian across the whole fretboard or something like that. I use software too. So if you have a Mac, there's a software, which is the iPad version is coming out soon. I talked to them, but there's an app called Guitar Layers, which is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I would give something like that a try too. But I don't remember all the PDFs for stuff that I don't even make the PDFs. I have another gentleman that does all that. But I'm sure there are lots of courses I have that have those. But you could just do a search on the internet probably too. Hey, Clay. Hey, Mike. Roy, which this is another question. I don't know if Roy... Yeah, that's Roy. Look at Roy Stanley. There's what he says. And right here, I've got it written. How do you figure out the color tones when playing in a mode? Really, the color tones are just the different notes, right, Roy? So if I was playing in natural minor, for instance, I've always got my root, my minor or major third, depending on what I'm in, and then my fifth, which are kind of the primary colors. The seventh is another one that's really nice. Those are kind of generalized color sounds. But for instance, you want to go with the ones that are different. Those are the ones that really create the color. So in this case, what I would want is that ninth. Number one, the ninth is going to add the sound that the pentatonic does not offer. But if you really want to get the sound, for instance, of Aeolian or natural minor, you'd want to add in that minor sixth. And that's going to give you that sound of that natural minor. Where the minor third and the ninth are just really great sounding notes and work well for all of the minor modes. But if you really want that sound, you got to go for the one that's different. So Dorian, you got your major sixth, which gives you kind of that bluesy sound. Natural minor, Aeolian, it's that minor sixth. If you wanted to do, Phrygian, then you need that flatted second. That's where you get that sound from. So that's how color tones really work, because you're looking for the notes that kind of define the chord, which would be the root, the third, the fifth, which are obvious. And then for me, it's always like the ninth, as much as I can anyway, the seventh, but the one that really makes all the difference is the one that's different between them. So you look at your three major modes or your three minor modes, and you look at the ones that are different between those. Okay? Let's see here. Richard says ScaleBank is an app that's great for scales and modes. That's perfect. Thank you, Richard. Francis says, I'm not sure if you got my question in the last session. It was on call, like in the key of G is the dominant G. Can you retype that, Francis? I'm not sure what you're saying, Francis, but I'll certainly answer it. I'm just not sure what you're saying. John said, took your suggestion about chord pulse, tried it and loved it and bought it. Yeah, chord pulse is a great way of just jamming. I love it because it takes no time to dial in, and you can dial in cool jazz chords if you want some seventh stuff in there or some ninth stuff. It's really easy to dial in the tonality and jam. If you want to make something that has an outside chord, like a chord that doesn't fit, Chord Play is just really, or Chord Pulse, is a really great app for doing that. Hey, Rob. Roy says they're used as passing tones. Well, I'm not sure and they're used as passing. Well, everything's a passing tone, really, right? I mean, when you're talking about soloing, which is different than a melody, if you're not emphasizing something, you're passing over it, right? So if you're playing an Aeolian, the thing to understand about soloing in general is all the notes can be important in their own way, depending on how you phrase. That's what it really comes down to. So if I play something and I'm trying to target up to that minor sixth, really everything is a passing note up to that point. But it's not just one note, it's always working it into a melodic phrase. Right? But I would use that minor sixth, I would try and really target it to get the sound of it. It doesn't just necessarily mean I want to try and land on it every time and just make that the note that you hear all the time, but I'm certainly going to use it in my phrases. But even in saying that, to be honest with you, there are times then what I'll do is completely contrast that with a pentatonic thing. I might play an A minor pentatonic, but I might play an E minor pentatonic, which breaks up the monotony of just going. You know, I don't just want to do that the whole time unless I'm playing a speed pattern. You know, then I might do that. But otherwise, I tend to try and jump over things. You see? Rich says, I don't think I have enough years on the planet to learn. Listen, I know. But that's what the conversations are about. But yeah, I know. And that's the thing is it's all about jamming. Like I said in the last session, you can't just spend your time trying to make logical sense out of everything. You know, well, Dorian means this, or, you know, dominant 7 means this or something. That's all important. Don't get me wrong. But putting your fingers on the instrument and actually trying to make sounds, that's where the gold is, right? That's where the magic happens. And so we're trying to figure out how to use all of these notes in a creative way so it sounds like music. It doesn't just sound like we're playing a scale. You know what I mean? You got to try and find a way of kind of, like what I do is I always think about just twisting and molding. I remold everything all the time. So, you know, there was a time in my playing when I played very linear. Everything was... And I still do those kind of licks and stuff like that. You're welcome, Roy. I do licks and stuff like that, but I really, really enjoy the sound of intervals. So I'm always trying to figure out how I can kind of move and maneuver around this stuff as I'm playing to make it sound a little more unique. Now remember, none of this really means anything if I don't have a jam track. I wonder if I've got a jam track sitting around here. You know, let's say like this. See if we can find something good. Are you guys hearing the distortion, or does it sound okay in your end? Let me know, because sometimes my audio driver gets goofy, but I don't think it bothers on your end. I think it's on my side. Let me know if you can hear that wacky sound. Okay, you can hear it. Okay. Give me a second. I have a quick fix, so just give me 1 second here. I just got to pull up my DAW again. My setup is so ridiculously complex, it's ridiculous. Okay, can you hear me now again? Should be back. So let me try this again and see if this works. Okay, good. Okay, can you hear that music there? Okay, good. So what you're doing is you're basically trying to combine, hopefully you guys could hear that okay? You're trying to combine feel and phrasing and rhythm with targeted notes, right? The chord coming up. What jam track is that? It's just some sort of thing in B minor. I'm not sure which one it is, but I just buy a ton of them and make a ton of them. But it says B minor, so I'm not sure which one that is. But as I'm jamming, I'm thinking about all those things. And then as I'm moving through the scale, I might keep it pretty constant. Right, whatever. Right? And then I'll start adding in some outside notes. So it's pentatonic primarily, and then all of a sudden you add in... And that note sticks out like a sore thumb. Because it's fresh to the ear. Even though we could have been using that's the ninth that I'm doing right there. I'm playing in the key of B. Awesome. It sounds like some of you were following along. That's great. So even though I could have been using that ninth, right, the whole time, which is the C sharp, I wasn't. I was saving it so when it did show rear its ugly head, it stands out. It's really... You see? So a lot of times, even though the notes are all available to you, it doesn't mean you want to expose all those notes right away. Sometimes you want to kind of work them in different places, okay? So hopefully that kind of makes sense to you. Let me find my question. Sorry about that. I got stuff all over the place here. All right. We got that. How do you blend major and minor pentatonic scales and make it sound good? Well, again, you got to spend time exploring it, okay? But basically, if you think about it, what you're trying to do is, again, have a generic setup in the background. Like if you just took A minor pentatonic. And that was your setup in the background. So you can always default to that. So if you start getting lost, you're not sure what to do, you can always drop back into your pentatonic. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build some sort of pattern. You see? So what I'm doing is I'm taking minor pentatonic and I'm merging it with major pentatonic. One of the big patterns that I like to do, and there's a ton of them, but a really easy one is if I'm in A, I'm going to play 4-7 on the 4th string, 5-6 on the 3rd string, 5-7 on the 2nd string, and 5-8 on the 1st string. Okay, so I'm combining both major and minor. And see, if I drop back into the minor pentatonic after doing that, now I can't see your guys' chat. Oh, there you are. Okay, so as I'm doing that, see, I'm combining major and minor together, but then if I slip out of that and go back into minor, it sounds really cool. See that? So that's another way you can approach it too, is learning to combine these. You just got to kind of search around all over the fretboard. Like, I'll show you a couple different things, and of course I'll post this in the Masterclass group too. But so if I was playing here, for instance, I might do, now again, minor pentatonic would be, I'm in the key of A, so it'd be 3-5, 3-5, 2-5, 2-5, 3-5, right, like that. And major would be 2-4, 2-5, 2-4, 2-5, 2-5, okay? But what I'll do is I'll combine those together and get this. I'll play 5-3-2, and the next string, same thing. And then this string, I'll do 5-4-2 on those two strings. And now I get a different kind of sound on this side. And And then there's just a million things that you can explore. But all I'm doing is I'm trying to see both of those. So, and I used to sit with pieces of paper and I would draw these out. I would sit and draw out a minor pentatonic position and what was sitting over the top as a major pentatonic. And then I would sit and try and just kind of explore how they sound together. You see? Link says, for the solo that you just did you think at all about the actual notes you were targeting? Or have you played so long that you just instinctively know where the target notes are for a particular key? Both are happening. So in this, if you're talking about the one I just did in B minor, it's just a minor blues, right? It's just a minor blues. So I know I'm in minor. So I know, what notes I'm going to target over that blues thing. Okay, but like when the E minor comes up, like for me, one of the great notes that I love is when that E minor comes up, I can go right here to that G, which that note could have existed. Again, that's the minor 6. It could have existed over that B minor, but it actually sounds stellar over the E minor, the 4 chord, because it's part of the chord. So is that... See, if I hit that note right over that E minor, throw some blue stuff in there, it sounds pretty cool. So you're always being aware of those. Okay, so again, I know I say this all the time, but I want you all to really understand that part of the job of learning how to play guitar isn't always just learning new things. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's taking the stuff that you already know and trying to figure out how, by practicing creatively. Don't be in a hurry. You might have to set aside an hour or two of just exploring an idea, not 5 ideas and 5 keys and 7 positions, but just something that you can absorb into yourself that you can use when you play. And when it becomes part of you, then you can grab another thing and throw it in there. But it's a different perspective of practice because we get so used to thinking about regiment. It's just, we got to practice this for 20 minutes and then we got to set the metronome and practice. And that's all good. Don't get me wrong. It's all great. But it's not going to get you any closer to creative soloing. It's just going to build a lot of great technique, which is wonderful. Okay? But if you can start building some plans of your attack, right? That's part of the fun of it is there's no right or wrong to any of this. So if I'm having a sucky technique day, which today I'm kind of having a sucky technique day, to be honest with you, when I have those, it's okay. I don't get stressed out about it at all anymore. There was a time when I would have. I don't because I'm like, that's okay. So that means today is a great day to be creative. Today's a great day to really think about my bending. Or whatever, right? I'm going to spend some time with those things on that day. That's okay. And actually, I really enjoy those. So for me, on the days when I do feel some technique, then I go crazy with that stuff. But the other days, I'm okay just spending some time looking for different ideas. So I build patterns. I build ideas around the fretboard in whatever key I'm playing in and kind of go from there. Let's see here. Renzo says, is there any rule of thumb to where to use or try, say, a 7th, 9th, or 11th or add chord in the major and minor chord progressions? Is there any rule of thumb to where to use or try a 7th, 9th, or 11th chord? No. No, like a lot of times I'll play, like if we think of like this chord, I'm sure you guys have seen this before. Right, so I'm playing a C sharp minor. Or it could be a C sharp major for that matter too. But what I'm doing is I'm adding the 9th. And then I'll use those strings open. So if somebody else was playing a C sharp, I might come in with a and somebody else might be going. You see something like that. Or a D chord. If I'm playing a D chord, I might throw a D sus in there, or, come up and do some other D. Again, the seventh is a little defining. Like the seventh is the one that will give it either a blues or a jazz sound. The ninth is not a destructive sound at all, adding the ninth in there. The 11th is not a destructive sound. It's a sus sound, right? Just like a 13th would be. So those aren't, when I say destructive, I mean changing the structure. When you add the seventh, you've created a blues chord. Or if you add the major seventh, you created a jazz chord. Now, they're both still functional. They don't have to be blues or jazz. Seventh chords have been used in folk music for years, right? Americana stuff. Jazz. There's times I've written songs where I will use like a D major 7, D dominant 7. Kind of the Beatles sort of thing there. So again, I'm not using it in a correct sense, because having D major and D major 7 and D dominant 7 in the same key that's not possible. But in the key of rock and roll, it works just fine, right? But those are really defining. When you add the ninth or you add the 11th, it's not as defining. I hope that kind of makes sense. They color it up, but they don't change the sound of it. Yeah, it does sound like the Beatles. I've always loved that chord progression. Anyway, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where we are here. What can I do for practice to help me see and blend major and minor? Well, Dan, have you studied some of the stuff? Like, do you own blues, the Blues Masterclass, the Modern Blues Masterclass, or anything like that? Or do you own any of my blues courses? Or even just going out on YouTube and learning some major and minor stuff? I've got all kinds of stuff out there for that kind of thing. Learning to anytime I talk about blues for me is not major or minor. It just isn't. It can start there, and that's fine. But ultimately, blues needs to be. Oh, you've got the Modes Masterclass. I gotcha. Well, if you look into one of the blues ones, if you decide sometime. Otherwise, I know I've got some videos on YouTube that talk about major and minor pentatonic. You might want to start there and just start exploring those a little bit. Because just like anything else, it's just learning a few licks and a few ideas. You don't have to conquer the entire fretboard to begin with. And again, I'll post this in the Masterclass group, Dan, but even if you just started with this thing I'm showing you here, you'd be surprised. My first introduction to this whole thing was something you all know very well. You see? That shook me all night long. When he does that... When he does that second slide, when I was a kid, I had no friggin' idea what he was doing, okay? But when I got older, I realized what he's actually doing is he's moving from minor pentatonic to major. So my first introduction to major pentatonic in general, but blues, real kind of blues, for me was Angus Young. He was the guy that I listened to. I wanted to play, I wanted to play all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, I get it, Dan. That's the thing is that's where the theory comes in, right? That's where the logic comes in. I would say you'd want to do some studying of some blues. I also have another course called Real World Soloing. Trying to remember if I have another one that talks about soloing over different styles of music and ways of approaching it to make them sound more, because theory only goes so far when it comes to rock and roll. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. But it sounds good, and that's why we do it. And there's stuff that makes total sense. That's where theory comes in. So, Dan, maybe message me in one of the groups, and let me see if I can help you try and find something that will answer your question. because I'm sure I can. I'm sure I've got something out there that can help you with that. So, hey, it's Rudy. He's from Belgium. Thanks for joining us. This is awesome. Okay, so let's keep going with some questions here. I'm going to get back to this here. Yeah, key of rock and roll. It's so true. Yeah. Might sound like a tagline, but it really is. It just has its own thing, which makes it what it is. Let's see here. Can you demonstrate pinch harmonics? Sure. Pinch harmonics are really quite straightforward. All you do with a pinch harmonic is you choose wherever you want the harmonic to be, right? Any note, doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what scale. This hand is pretty much irrelevant to the pinch harmonic. The pinch harmonic is done by choosing a note, like I'm going to choose the 7th fret of the 5th or 4th string, which is A. And what I'm going to do, instead of just playing the note, I'm going to turn my hand just a little bit, just like that. I can do it with my thumb, I can do it with my wrist, whatever's works for me. But I'm going to turn just a little bit so the pick is now kind of facing sideways. And most importantly, my thumb is touching the string at the same time the pick is. So as I push that guitar pick through, the thumb also goes with. You see that? And you can hear the pinch harmonic underneath that, although I'm killing the string because I'm holding it, right? So what I do is as I push through, I'm not pushing hard, I'm not digging in, I'm not doing anything. I'm just literally turning my hand. So the pick is at kind of an angle so the thumb can touch at the same time. And when I push that pick through, the thumb stays touching that string all the way through. And once I get done, I just got to get out of the way. And that's a pinch harmonic. Now I can move anywhere I want. And get different pinch harmonics, and then I can add in, you know, big vibratos and all that kind of stuff, but that's not enhancing the pinch harmonic, that's already there. I'm just making something cool afterwards. But it does help, no doubt, to have some distortion on there and maybe some high output pickups of some sort. Depends on how much of a pinch harmonic you want, but that's what it is. Okay, let's see here. My question has to, this is Doug, my question has to do with intervals. It is my understanding that the major scale uses whole, whole, half in its distance from one note to the next, which is correct. So what is the distance or interval for a scale that starts on minor? Okay. Also, is major scale the same as diatonic scale? Major scale is the same as diatonic scale, but there are other diatonic scales. The major scale is a diatonic scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. When you talk about minor, let me go back to the question there it is. When you talk about the minor scale versus the major scale, understand that this is where modes come in, okay? I was trying to get, if you're new to all this, I was trying to get people to understand that there really is no such thing as a minor key. It's really just a mode of a major key. Because like when I was a kid, you know, when I was in college, you learn that C major has no sharps and flats, and then A minor has no sharps and no flats, and they're relative major and minor, which is true. I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying my professor was wrong. What I'm saying is A minor and C major are the same thing though. Right? The difference is if you're in the key of C major, you're starting on C, the first note, and you're emphasizing the C chord, and you're playing other chords. One of them happens to be A minor. Okay? You could be in the key of C major and choose or elect to emphasize the 6th chord, which is A minor, and if you do that, we're in A minor. Okay? So you're using all the chords of C, all the notes of C, but you're starting or emphasizing the A minor chord in the key of C. And this is where modes come from, is people go, well, if you can do that on 1 and 6, why can't you do that on 2 and 3 and 4 and 5? And the answer is you can. That's what modes are. So minor would be major, but you're starting on the 6th degree. So you're just reordering those. Okay. So if you were playing, for instance, in G major, you've got what you just said, half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. If you're in the key of E minor, which is G major, you're going to have the same notes, okay? But because you're starting on E, okay, your notes are going to wind up being 1, 2, 3. You've got a half step between 2 and 3 and 5 and 6, just because you started on the 6th degree. Now, I can't write it down on the screen right now. I wish I could. I don't think I can. No, I can't. I wish I could, though. But if you think about it, G would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. If you were in the key of E minor, you could, either start on that E minor or just write it over here and go E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E. And it's the same notes, right? So you're going to just go, oh, well, the half steps now are obviously between 3 and 4, or excuse me, 2 and 3 and 5 and 6, because I'm starting on E instead of starting on G. I hope that makes sense. Theory and modes and all that, they take some time to absorb, but they're easier than you think they are. I've always told people they're so easy, they're difficult, because we make them way more difficult than they need to be. And when I was in college, I did exactly that. When I was in college, trying to learn major and minor and modes and all this stuff, I thought there was 3,000 scales. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to learn all this. And I don't remember how it all came to organization of going, oh, A Dorian is just G major. And again, in application, yes, there are different things you do for phrasing and all that. But just on the surface level, A Dorian is the second mode of G major, right? It's using the same chords and the same notes and everything. You're just starting in a different place. So if you can wrap your head around the logic of that, it makes the rest of it a little bit easier. Remembering the triads of the modes is the hardest part. Yeah, it certainly could be. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, it's just a different thing. We all got to learn them. Let's see here. Can you do a real-time example live of using basic theory and basic starting diatonic of major scales to do a simple solo over a well-known easy song or phrase in a song where you may solo? Can you do a real-time live example of using basic theory and basic starting diatonic? Well, again, it's different for everybody. But if I was playing just basic, let's say I'm doing major, right? I'm doing a G major scale. The first thing I would do is I would start thinking about what chord I'm playing over, right? So if I'm playing over a G major chord, I'm going to try and make a connection to that G major somehow. It doesn't mean the only notes I can emphasize are G, B, and D or something like that. Not at all. But I know those are target notes that are going to work, right? So if I hear this, I know that D is going to sound quite nice over the top of that. Or that major third, right? I certainly go to the root, but the root is a pretty obvious one. So it's nice to go to other things. But I might set myself up for something different. Like I might do the major 7. And then if the next chord, for instance, is B minor, I'm already in place. And I might do something else and make a connection there. So basic, I'm not trying to be complex. I'm just... The trick is you want to learn how to truly visualize your positions and understand either with logic, theory, or with visualization, how you're going to connect to the chords that are being played. Now, this might screw up my driver again. We'll try it. I'm going to see if I can find... There we go. Let me see if this works now. I gotta turn that down a little bit. Can you guys hear that okay? Okay, so if you can hear that, which I'm sure you'll let me know in just a second here, I'm playing, this chord progression is G, B minor, C, D. Okay? So I'm gonna back off my distortion. Okay, so it's going G to B minor, C, D, right? Okay, so I'm playing G, B minor, C, D. Now, in the beginning stages of soloing, oftentimes we'll just play. Like I know I use the same analogies all the time, but it's kind of like two cars on the interstate driving next to each other. They don't know each other. They can't hear each other, but they're both driving 70 miles an hour or whatever it might be, right? Until one of them speeds up or slows down. That's oftentimes the first approach that we take to soloing is we're not really making a connection to the music. We're just playing in something that is compatible, right? We're driving a car on the interstate. So if I just took my G major pentatonic and I did this, okay, you're going to notice that all the notes are fitting, though. It doesn't sound horrible, right? It's certainly better than going like this. Right? If I can add a little bit of juxtaposition in there, it sounds a little more interesting if I jump over some things and things like that. Now, in order to do this, I have to have done some route practice, right? I've had to have practiced this position, this G major position, at this tempo so I can actually play at the speed, right? I mean, if I'm not technically proficient enough, I'm not going to be able to do what I'm doing right now. Does that make sense? Because I'm hearing this. So the first thing I got to do is make a rhythmic connection. Can I play at eighth notes with this thing? Yes, I can. Can I play at 16th notes? Right? So what I'm doing now is a technique that I talk to you guys about all the time, which is meandering, right? I'm meandering. I'm developing my ability to be able to play at this tempo in this particular scale, whatever one I'm working on, whether you like A minor or you like G minor or you like E minor, right? I need to find the appropriate jam track that fits who I am and where I am in my playing. If I find a jam track that's in the wrong key and it's way too fast, that doesn't do me any good, okay? So that's the first place I start. Then what I do is I start breaking this into some phrasing things, right? Now I'm still pentatonic. I'll go diatonic in a minute here. But I start breaking these things, this meandering, into some phrases. Then what I do is I start trying to land on some notes that are correlating with the chords. So either I know my theory, I know where G, B, and D are on my fretboard, I can start making those connections, or I can visualize a G chord somewhere on the guitar. Maybe I look at G here, and then B minor comes up. Maybe I see this B minor here. And I start trying to target some of those notes in each one of those chords. So as it's playing, here comes G. That fits over B. Okay, what's coming next? C. Here comes D. So now all of a sudden, again, it's not fancy. I'm not trying to be fancy. I'm just trying to make some sort of melodic connection to these chords that are being played. It's when I start trying to play outside my comfort zone, in a key I don't understand, in a scale I can't see, at a tempo that's too fast. Well, now I can't nurture all of these tools with the wrong environment. I got to either make my own jam track or find the jam track that fits exactly where I am. And this is why you can't just run in a hurry from pentatonic to diatonic or something. I could spend all day just doing this in pentatonic and still be perfectly happy, okay? Because I could do some really cool stuff with it, hopefully anyway, right? But the diatonic gives me some more notes to work with. So it's comfortability and confidence in my fretboard, whether it's chords, whether it's a scale, right, a mode, whatever you want to call it, in a key that I'm trying to work in. Because that's the other thing people do is that they try and do too many keys and too many modes and too many things. And again, when it's time to jam, they don't really have anything. There's no, large cohesion of the fretboard or something, because we're trying to do all the keys and all the modes, and we're trying these little things, and we don't really have anything of substance. Where the trick is pick a key. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's E minor. Again, E minor is G major, right? So you got two great birds with one stone right there. And you got A Dorian, and if you know your modes, all that kind of stuff. And if you like A minor better, A minor's fine. Heck, A minor can still be in G if you're playing A Dorian, right? But if you're not, then you've got A minor, which is C major, and that gives you all kinds of great stuff as well. But my point is you just can't jump all over the place. So maybe you start developing your fretboard in the key of E minor, right, pentatonically. And then you start trying to phrase a little bit. And then you start trying to make some chordal connections. Okay, and then if you do know some of your modes, maybe you start trying to play some of those notes. Like I said before, even though I know all those, I don't just use them all the time, because there's nothing left for the listener. I've used it all. I've expelled everything I had. Where if I can find ways of doing some cool stuff with that, whatever it might be. Let's think here. Maybe some blues? There's just all kinds of different stuff that you can do. And it's just something to think about a little bit. Okay? So it looks like that kind of makes sense to some of you. That's really good. Okay. We only got a couple more minutes here, and then I got to go eat some supper. But hopefully that answers the question right there of some of that. Cedric says, is there a pedal that I can purchase that will give me the sound that you have? Well, no, not really, but I don't think my sound is that unique. I think the big thing for me is just trying to, my sound primarily comes from the guitar and the pickups that I use, and then plugging into whatever amp I'm using. Like the Hughes and Kettner is nice because I can go from really clean to on the same channel, and I really like that kind of thing. It used to only happen with tube amps, and now even with solid state amps, you can get that kind of sound. And then bring it up a bit more. I just love that kind of thing where you can, Angelo says, any Boss or Line 6. Yeah, and I think anything will work. Honestly, I think any kind of thing will work. It's just if you buy like a Metal Zone pedal, and even that probably you could get a decent kind of cleanish blues tone if you dialed it back. I have no idea. But I really try and, I don't use a lot of pedals. Like right now I don't have any distortion pedals on. I have a little reverb and delay on right now, but I don't have any distortion on. But I do have, like, in my pedal board right now, I've got Misha, if you know Misha from Periphery, I've got his Precision Drive in there right now. And the Precision Drive takes and it kind of squishes it together so it loses some low end and things, which are nice when you're playing like 7-string, but it's also, it's kind of nice when you're playing solos and stuff. If you want that kind of nasally, I'll take it off here. So if I want more of a solo like that, I can use the pedal. but it's certainly not something I need. I mean, it's just there more for my 7-string stuff. Okay, cool. Good. I'm glad that helped you guys. I'm glad that makes sense to you. Did I forget Francis's question about the dominant in the key of G? Let me go back and see if I can find Francis's question. Where are you, Francis? I'm looking for it. Oh, here. Did you put, sorry, D? Okay. If you're in the key of G, is A the dominant D? If you're in the key of G, is A the dominant D? Or maybe you didn't mean the A, okay? If you're in the key of G, is the dominant D? Yes. If that's Francis, I'm so sorry. If that's what you meant, yes, the dominant is the 5 chord. Okay? The dominant is the 5 chord. So if that makes sense. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Angelo says Helix is great too. Yeah, that's the thing, is there's so much good stuff out there. And for me, the big thing is I just like to dial in, I dial in a clean sound, which I love to play on clean. I just love that kind of sound. And then I'll have my crunch channel, where I can bump it up a little bit. Even more with because you'll notice I'm always using my pickup selector. So I can back off, I can bring it up. And then I've got my heavy channel. And that's where all that kind of stuff comes in. But even on the heavy channel, I can back it off. I can't back it off as much. So I spend most of my time on channel B, and then I go to C when I need more, and go to clean when I need that. Okay? So cool. All right, everybody, I'm going to head out and grab some food, and I wish you a great evening or morning or afternoon, wherever it is you are. Thank you so much for taking some time to hang with me. And I'm actually going to post that video right now in the Masterclass group, so you can watch it in case you missed anything or you want to go back and review anything. And I am going to post that that G, B minor, C, D track for you as well, okay? I'll post that in there as well. So everybody take care, and I'll talk